That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And join us as we look for the exit sign and make a book pilgrimage towards a childhood classic. It's the 30th anniversary of the Pagemaster. Yes, cue inspirational, whimsical music. All right, Dragon, this is a big one. Honestly, I would say it's probably pretty fair to say that out of all the anniversary stuff that we've had this year on the pipeline, this is probably the one where it's like, yes, we can't wait to get to this. Can't wait to get to the Pagemaster.
I would concur with that, yeah.
So this, honestly, might be the first time in my memory that I actually can recall the promotional campaign for a movie, like the trailers and stuff. I'm sure I don't really know. Let's see, if it was Fox, it might have been like I don't know. I don't know what I would have seen a trailer for this on, but I know that I was aware of this movie before it came out. I know that, much like Richard Tyler, I was scared to go see this movie in a movie theater, so I saw it on VHS. And the same year, I went to go see The Lion King in theaters instead as my first movie, which I would say is probably a good trade-off. But Dragon, this was definitely one of my first hyperfixations as far as movies go. Like, because I was always a book kid, and I think this movie just kind of scratched that itch. And also, I got to tell you, a lot of, I don't want to get into it too much on this show because, believe me, I could do a whole breakdown on it. I have so much nostalgia for the Super Nintendo video game of the Pagemaster. It's genuinely, for me, one of the unsung heroes as far as video game adaptations of movies. Like, it's just a basic platformer, but essentially, like, it's got the three worlds, the horror, adventure, and fantasy. But each world map is kind of like spread out over like a turned book. So like both pages, and I don't know, you get literally every single location in this movie that you can possibly think of. Every little scenario gets its own level. It's incredible. You get like multiple levels in the dragon's stomach. But yeah, so I, as a kid, I definitely, this was definitely one of the movies I defaulted to watching a million times on VHS. I will say, revisiting it as an adult, I feel like some of it definitely doesn't hold up. You can definitely feel that kind of Ted Turner misguided edutainment influence a little. But I will say, I do think this is still a very imaginative movie. I think specifically the animation, while certainly not on the same level as something like the Disney Renaissance, of course, it's got its own style. It's got its own flair to it. I'm a big fan of how abstract the backgrounds are in this movie, for example, for one thing. And I'm sure we'll break it down. As far as plot goes, it's pretty messy. As far as characters go, it's pretty one-dimensional. But I think the movie's got charm for days. I think it's got that sort of like spirit of childhood adventure and fantasy with a little bit of horror sprinkled in. So I'm excited to talk about it. It's not necessarily like a flawless classic, but I do think it's just like a very much a classic that's built on the backs of nostalgia. And I think the nostalgia really does some heavy lifting along with the animation for this movie. All right, what do you say, Dragon? I know that you've been biting at the bullet to get to this one.
Yeah, so this film's very nostalgically ingrained in me. I want to say my first viewing on this, I can't pinpoint if I had both the VHS at home and saw this at school, or saw it at school then the VHS. But at the very least, I think this was a school viewing, not specifically in tandem with the Scholastic Book Fair, but maybe adjacent to it. They were in the vicinity, I'm sure. The point being,
it does have a Scholastic Book Fair energy to it.
The point being, I'm pretty sure at some point they played this movie in the library. That's all I'm going to say. Regardless, I'm convinced that my first view of this was like at school on VHS. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but at the very least, I saw this thing somehow, definitely on VHS. The method of the location of which I can't pinpoint. Regardless, this film always left an impression. That's the thing. After one viewing, I was sucked in. I was enamored. It's like I hadn't really, you hadn't really seen much like this at that time. It really just honestly the big captivating thing about it for me was the shift in gears between live action to animation, like working it into the plot. That was like the big thing. Like this is probably I imagine it's probably before I even saw Roger Rabbit. This is like, at the very least, the
Oh,
method
this
of
was definitely before I saw Roger Rabbit.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying, I'm fairly certain I saw this way before I saw Roger Rabbit. That was like that was the seamless blending of the two. This is very much a distinct difference, but still like transitioning into it though. That
I
was
might
that
have
was
seen
big.
like I don't know, like Mary Poppins before this or something like that. But again, it's an entirely different
Yeah.
sort of concept.
Again, that's more blending than it is like literally like the
Sure,
transition
sure.
point. Anyway, so the book gimmick, I think really it made it a real made it a real adventure. Made it like a real adventure and kind of an escapist sort of thing. I always loved Christopher Lloyd in this film. I still love Christopher Lloyd in this film. The ending, and we'll get to it. I think the ending is Chef's Kiss. I think it's utterly beautiful. I'm gonna go on about it. I'm sure. It's interesting. It's not full. I fully admit it's not great. Okay, it doesn't hold up. Okay, but here's the thing: the movie itself may not hold. It may not be great. It's certainly not Yates, to use a literary example, but it's a time capsule piece.
Sure,
That it
totally.
of the education-driven media that we know the edutainment Turner kind of stamp as you would kind of circle around here, and it's worth revisiting, especially 30 years later. I mean, it's a movie. It's worth just kind of like it's again. It's going back in time to see like, wow, this is what we kind of put out there, and it's like there was some production value there. I mean, what again? It was we skimped on the story department a little bit, but still there is scholastic charm for days in this, man. This thing is like this is the the big cinematic scholastic book fair piece.
This is essentially the Avengers of the Scholastic Book Fair.
There you go. Anyway, so again, I got a lot of love for this, but it's we'll honestly look. When I went back into this, I still found a lot of stuff that I think really stuck out, and even just beyond the nostalgia, I think stuff that what people I guess since people probably undervalued, and looking back on it's like, does it measure up to all the other childhood classics? Well, of course not. Look what we had. Are you daft, man? Of course not. But by the same token, though, I can respect what.
I mean, this is certainly better than like most of Bluth's non-Anastasia output from the 90s.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. The effort was put into this, and I can respect the effort.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Disney Renaissance, but it's not like Dark Bluth Dark Ages either.
Like
Dawn Bluth Dark Ages either.
My point is taking like like the bottom of the barrel eras from any of the animation studios, from from Disney, from from Bluth. You look at this, and it's like this movie did make you feel something. I mean, didn't it make you feel anything, Tiki?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have my critiques, but no, the ending, I definitely agree with you. There's a very great note it goes out on. There's definitely some very emotionally swelling moments. I think part of that is certainly viewed through the lens of nostalgia. I'm not going to lie, but
yeah, but still, that's my takeaway. Even as a kid, I still like watching this. I still feel the way I felt about it when I was a kid watching, and that there's I can respect that.
All right. So we'll address the comments as they become relevant. First of all, Kogias says, is the film really good? I mean, yes and no, Kogias. It's not perfect, as we're addressing, but...
Well, look, Kogias, you would love this movie.
Maybe. I'm saying, like, I don't know. I'm saying, like, if you grew up with... It's one of those movies where it's like, I'm curious how someone would feel about it if they did not grow up with it. Because I kind of feel like it's impossible to separate my nostalgia from this movie and just kind of look at it 100% objectively. Anyways, Little Blue says, my first encounter with this film was, it reminded him of Harry Potter. And Slasher Fred says, Harry Potter, the Pagemaster can be seen as an inspiration to Harry Potter. It involves a nerdy male protagonist who's literally drawn into a mythical world and soon gains his confidence to confront his enemies. Yeah, we'll get to the Potter stuff. And then Jacob says, damn it, Ted Turner, stop trying to educate us. And on that note, Dragon, how do we get this picture?
Okay, so long story short, so Fox and it's mostly Turner Animation. They did this. Turner had the the education mandate going on. This is kind of a cinematic version of those ventures versus the televised version of those ventures that were really prominent towards the I want to say the late '80s. Anyway, so Charles, I'm going to butcher his last name. Charles Pogue. He was the guy who pitched the concept for the film, like kind of a brief outline of it. This guy wrote, interestingly, as compared to where this film goes. Interestingly, we had a lot of talent on us who wrote, some iconic horror films. Believe it or not, the guy who wrote The Fly pitched this movie.
Oh wow!
Jeff Goldblum's The Fly. The guy who pitched Jeff Goldblum's The Fly and Psycho 3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, honestly, this film does have, obviously 1/3 of it is horror, but there is some genuinely kind of like big potential childhood trauma moments in all three of the acts, honestly.
So here's the other thing. So David Kirshner. So David Kirshner, he ran with this. Now he was a co-writer and producer on it, and he was the main writer on the maybe I can't say. I know he worked with him on these movies. I don't know if he was also, I think, a producer writer on these movies as well. He was the go-to guy on the Child's Play movies, the Chucky movies. That was this guy. Also worked on American Tail. Nice. So he's got some Bluth credentials. Anywho, so the live action stuff was directed by the wonderful Joe Johnston.
Indeed.
Director of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Captain America: The First Avenger. Also designed had the successful design of the Iron Giant.
Did he do the Rocketeer?
Yeah, he did. Directed the Rocketeer, and he I believe he conceptualized the ads from Empire Strikes Back.
Oh man, no, that guy seriously doesn't get the credit that he deserves as far as just being
doesn't.
He should be up there as far as, and he directed the one Jurassic Park sequel that I actually think is worth a damn.
There you go. Anywho, point being, so he directed the live action stuff, but I'll tell you this: he hated the movie. He hated working on this.
Oh no!
I have a speculation as to why, and I'm not just because I'm not jumping on a bandwagon with that. I really think it's because Johnston. I get the sense he really is given the proportion of we only have really the tail end and the beginning of this film in live action. The rest of it is not really his movie. I imagine that might stick in the guy's craw. More specifically, I imagine the issue is, he only has so much free range, and I think there's a lot of mandated. Okay, Joe, you got to work this in there. We can't really make it a Joe Johnston movie. You just got to assist the animated film here, which I could, I imagine that's going to frustrate a guy. So he's on record saying, if I could erase the page, he's basically the George Lucas thing of just, if I could smash every copy with a hammer. Not he doesn't want the movie destroyed, but he says if I could erase it from my IMDb page.
Right. I've heard that. Yeah.
So which is a shame because again, a lot of the glowing stuff I have to say about this is the live action sections. Which
there's a big name that we've kind of been holding out on the live action section. That
I know. We'll get there momentarily, as soon as I can. Trust me. Anyway, so the animated portion of the film, Maurice Hunt did this, and he was an animator on The Black Cauldron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which honestly, that totally checks out. Visually, totally checks out.
Well, especially with one of our 3X.
Sure. Honestly, this might be the closest that any animated movie has come to looking like The Black Cauldron, for better and for worse.
Oh, yeah. So, speaking of which, the amalgam of the animation staff on this was kind of Disney and Bluth talent.
That makes sense.
So the production was about 3.5 years due to the hybrid of live action and animation, along with the sequence that really delayed it was the rotunda sequence. The actual like.
Oh yeah, the big paint CGI stuff. Yeah,
Because again, being the year that was, the year that this was made, that whole sequence is a combination of both live action, cell animation, and CG, early CG, which again, it's pretty impressive. This is a year before Toy Story.
I don't necessarily think the effect holds up very well, but I agree with you that, like, at the time, just the use of the different mediums, it's impressive that they would even attempt something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so apparently this was the last Fox film to use cell animation. Again, cell animation was kind of like they were making the shift around this time.
Right, because like after this, you would start to get into stuff like Anastasia, which would very much be like it would still use cell animation, but it would kind of be that like really CG blend, and then Titan AE would push even further.
Well, not even that. It's also like just like Caps, Tiki. This is pre-Caps.
Sure.
This is like the last film made Caps or Caps knockoff. Technically,
I mean, I'm pretty sure Caps existed at this point.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This was like the last vestige of kind of like outside of it. Like for Fox is the last one they did before they integrated like basically a knockoff.
This honestly might be one of the very last animated movies, period. Like at least Western animated, like Japanese anime stuff.
Well, again, Miyazaki doesn't count. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Well, I mean, honestly, all of Japan is a whole different ball game. But
yeah, you're right.
But I'm just saying, like, as far as just like Western, like U.S. animation.
Mm-hmm.
This might be one of the very last like hand-drawn films that didn't really use caps, that didn't use any sort of computer enhancements in its animation, like apart from certain stuff. Like I know the dragon had some computer generated stuff to it. Obviously the paint that we just went over, but by and large, this is very hand-drawn.
Oh yeah. Let's see. So all the books, as you probably noticed, all the books that actually factored in the story, they are public domain. So it's kind of a cost-effective feature of the film. But again, It works. It's educational. It's literature. It all worked.
It's like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen for kids.
This is something kind of cool when they were making the movie. I think for Macaulay Culkin's benefit, I mean, maybe in the design thing as well, but just they actually made these awesome. Seriously, they made these really awesome like to scale maquettes of like.
No, I know, I've seen them.
You've seen like they made these maquettes of the book characters, like actual to scale. They look really awesome. I would love to have those. I'm not gonna lie to you, that would be really cool.
I mean, that would just be like a great like collectible figure.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So apparently there was like a deleted section with Frankenstein, which made it into the game.
Oh, yep. Oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that made it into the game that wasn't in the movie.
Our whimsical score was provided by the late great James Horner. And again, lastly, just kind of bittersweet layoff. So David Kirshner, he fought tooth and nail for writing credit on this film. He took him to court and everything. It was like a whole thing, which kind of delayed the movie. So just the end result being the movie was like an utter box office bomb. Even Joe Johnson like, take my name off. I don't want it. No. It just the critics didn't like it. It just feels like a hollow victory for Kirshner. I got my name on the Pagemaster. But so again, that's kind of where we are on things. Okay, we're all caught up now.
Alrighty. Slasher Fred points out that this is Macaulay Culkin reuniting with Fox after the first two Home Alone movies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Little Blue. Little Blue, I think Jurassic Park 3 is very underrated, and while I don't agree that it's better than the first film, I certainly think that it's the second best in the series. More power to you for having your favorite of the Jurassic Park films be JP3. And then Slasher Fred says, speaking of Anastasia, one of the only live action animated movies that Don Bluth directed was Rockadoodle. Yeah,
that's true.
Trip, man. We've never talked about Rockadoodle, have we?
Well, no. I think we actually
did. We do a podcast on Rockadoodle?
Here's the thing with the whole Bluth Tower. I forget if we got to Rockadoodle or not.
I don't know if we did. I mean, but yeah,
I know we talked about Plumber as the Al character, so that makes me think we talked about it. But
we might have, yeah.
I can't recall offhand because I think we got through all the real question is if we got the Titan AE or not. That's the real question.
No, I think you're right. I think we must have talked through all of them because I think at that point the only stuff we were missing was like the video game stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, so getting into it. So our live action setup at the top here. We only have like two sequences, like two real full scenes of live action stuff, so we got to make it count. So Joe Johnson doing as it really feels like he's doing as much as he can with the screen time that he's able to really kind of direct and get a vision across here. So again, kudos to him as a director, it seems. And we have like vision. Think about this from the top. Visually, we hit the Rex Tyler. He's a scared kid. He's we have like the stormy night and everything. We're hitting all the beats that we need to with
The
the
scary
parents.
trees straight out of Poltergeist.
Yep. Admittedly, here's the thing. If I'm a betting man, I'm gonna say that it feels like the mandate came down, like the fun got kind of sucked out of it for Joe Johnson. It was like, okay, the kid's gonna be obsessed with statistics, and he's gonna have like a real gaudy bike, and we're gonna have a whole thing like, is he gonna make?
Hey, I like the
jump?
bike. We'll get to the bike.
Look, I'm just saying it feels.
The bike is iconic, sir.
I'm just saying the bike feels like I don't think Johnson. That feels like okay, Joe.
The statistics. The statistic thing is a little much, but the bike is incredible.
My point is, it feels like an oversell, and it feels like a thing I could buy at the studio. It's like, come on, we got to sell that he's really timid. How can we visually do that, Joe? What do you got for us?
Okay, but I'm just saying, you know what I like about the bike is
it's a fun design, but I'm just saying it's a little much.
But I like that it's a foreshadow to the shield.
Well, you're right about that. That's great.
Anyways.
No, I agree with you, though. The shield thing really is a good idea there, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, in some ways, it actually does foreshadow his bravery.
I'll give you that. Maybe you're right. Maybe I was a little harsh.
Thank you.
I'll cop to it.
This has been a miniature edition of Disney Debates, folks.
I was harsh on the bike. I shouldn't have been. Anyway, so let's talk about let's talk about a beat we can all dance to.
Oh yes. Yeah, dance to his funky bass line.
One of the finest parts of this film, Ed Begley Jr.
I mean, to be fair, Dragon, I get his plight. I don't necessarily think he does a great job of not coming across as asshole dad.
Oh, come on!
I'm sorry. I just gotta.
How dare you?
Dragon, when he's sitting in bed, just like, my kid, he's such a loser.
He did not say loser.
I know he didn't say loser, but he's basically rattling off like.
But that's real life, though. That's like the kid overhears the parental conversation, and again, that's a parental thing of like self-doubt. Like, am I not being a good enough father? Am I like, I'm building a treehouse that he's not going to be able to climb? Like, those are existential parental dilemmas right there. Seriously, what I love what Ed Begley Jr. did here is that he plays the frustration so honestly that he's not mad at the kid.
Honestly, I feel like maybe I'm giving him a little too much crap just because it does come across as like more realistic than you would usually see, and it's not butt cluck. Let's just give him.
Yeah, you better not compare him to Gary Marshall's evil screen credit. but yeah, that's the thing though. I just love that. Again, that's what I'm saying with Joe Johnson. What he's doing here is he have this tender moment of like a true to life thing of the kids overhearing the parents' conversation, but he's not going to interject, and but you feel the hurt, but you understand it though. It's like when you grow up, I think you kind of see the frustration where it's like, again, it's not a father being harsh, but it's just like, am I screwing this up? Am I not doing a good enough job as a parent?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, he's making an effort. Like the scene that follows with the treehouse and like the by the way, plus even if there were any criticism of this poor guy, we hit him in the head. We sent Ed Begley Jr. from to poor Alan. By the way, a little connective Joe Johnson.
Oh, I know. Alan. I did notice that. Yeah.
Poor Alan Tyler here. Admittedly, it is a little like, okay, really? I mean, what is he gonna like hold the bucket all the way over there over his head like that? But still, like we send him like tumbling out of the tree, like his poor back. Anyway, But yeah, just the fact he's not upset with the kid. He's not yelling at him. He's just like desperately, look, go to the hardware store. He gives him a quest again, per the whole fantasy night
No, I
thing
mean,
with the
this is my
shield.
favorite part of his character is just the fact that he kind of tries to contextualize it in that way. Like, look, Richard, please, you got to do something, like this is one thing that you can do. It's an easy enough goal and I need it. So yeah,
Yeah,
I like that setup.
and I'm not gonna lie to you. Like when I was a kid, that was the thing of like, oh man, that seems really irresponsible. But then I look back and it's like, this is kind of like it is like a test for the kid. It's like part of his like his live action quest that will then bleed into the animated segment. So it is. I don't know. It really fit. I think it really tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about atmosphere, Tiki. So this movie nailed atmosphere. I feel, especially in the live action portions. Like we have like the lightning and everything, and like
Yeah,
the atmosphere of like that library feels like such a glorious set, doesn't it? It's all labyrinthian and echoey.
I want that library to be like the queue to a theme park ride.
Right? Doesn't it? It has
Yeah,
like that. It's like
absolutely
with it raining
got that
outside,
vibe.
like the lightning preordains you to go there, and
Uh-huh.
it's like you have it's like safety, but it's also that haunted house vibe. It's like the start of every Scooby Doo cartoon you've ever
Well,
seen, where
it's
it's like,
basically like what Rocky Horror was making fun of.
oh, there you go. Okay, so Mr. Dewey.
Oh boy.
God, I love me some Christopher Lloyd, and I love him in this film. So this possibly is one of the most underrated Christopher Lloyd performances. One of the, not the is probably like One Flew the Cuckoo's Nest, but let's not
Right, let's not mix hairs here.
Point.
No, I mean I think you're absolutely right. I think this is one of the Christopher Lloyd performances that kind of gets overlooked, and honestly I think he shines even more as the actual Pagemaster. Like I love how the two sides of him, like Mr. Dewey is kind of like almost a little over the top in regards to like, if I were to meet this man in real life as a child, I would be scared of him just because he comes on a little strong.
Yeah, I just love that he only has like 4 scenes in this movie, and they're like the most iconic parts of the film.
Right.
Just so again, I love. By the way, I love that when we introduce him, it's actually kind of a cute Back to the Future reference. Where he shows up and he's guessing what he wants, which essentially is the whole like he's guessing what Marty wants at the door in Back to the Future.
Sure.
Well, let me guess. You're raising money for the Coast Guard youth. But yeah, that's like so. Just I love the whole. He's got the energy that draws you in, like the ultimate. Again, this feels like someone trying to sell you on the Scholastic Book Fair to a degree.
Yes, Dragon. Yes, it absolutely. Let's face it. If there was a mascot for the Scholastic Book Fair, it would be this guy.
Oh, by the way, I meant to tell you this before. You got to look into this. Okay, they did a behind the scenes thing for the movie.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and he does play in character, like touring you around the library,
and it kind of feels like the Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, it does. It does a little bit. I mean, that's what gives the space even more of like a theme park vibe.
Yeah, so I love this. Speaking of the theme park vibe, I'm sure you felt this. I love how the library card is basically like the ET passport.
Yeah, totally. If they were to do a Pagemaster ride, I could totally see them doing something like that.
And again, it's yet another connective tissue thing here, where again you go with the queue for the ET ride. Yep. Yeah. But that's the thing,
Charlie, Miranda.
I still remember as a kid, I was so blown away by that. It was kind of like that moment from Jingle All the Way. He knows my name.
Right.
No, seriously. Again, that's kind of the feeling of this movie, though. It's tantamount to like Spielberg telling you about the ET passport. Where it's just like this little insignificant, mundane thing, but it has all the gravity you could possibly foist upon this little item.
So speaking of which, we got to get into the awesome symbolism that is the exit sign.
Yes.
Because that is one of, to me, the exit sign stuff is like the most iconic, memorable part of this movie. Like, to me, it's never left my brain, the whole, like, look for the exit sign stuff.
I love that you can see it like the sunrise practically throughout the whole, and you get closer and closer. It's great.
I mean, like, The world building in this movie, let's call a spade here. It's pretty much nonsensical, which I'm not even complaining because I think it's abstract in a way that's meant to be.
Well,
Right?
think about this. This is really cool, though. In the world design, which kind of tracks to the exit sign. Think about it. We start off in the natural library, which when we go through a shelf, we end up in the horror section. We keep going through the different sections till we hit the exit. Now, in each set piece, you'll notice books are built into the natural landscape.
Oh,
Even
yeah,
when we
I
go
get
to
that. Yeah.
we go to the beach, we go inside the dragon. There's like natural, like bookshelves and everything built in. The exit, you climb a bookshelf, an awesome shelf, an awesome kind of stairway shelving of books to the exit. One could say, like subconsciously, if we go with like the coma logic here, he suffers a head injury. He might be hallucinating a little bit.
I mean, honestly, that is pretty much the in-canon explanation for all of this.
That's the thing. We pull a Wizard of Oz here. It's head trauma. So but with that, he is, again, he's kind of escaping the labyrinth, going to the exit sign. He's going where he last remembered. So you're kind of working through the actual kind of labyrinthian like bookshelf kind of layout of the library. So there is kind of a logic to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It kind of works.
No, but I was just gonna say I really like how the exit sign, like, for as nonsensical as some of the world building is, it is the one piece that kind of ties everything together logistically. Like I do like how, and you're right. There is, I like the visual motif of the books. I think it's one of the strongest things in the movie. Like I love how the books are even kind of lining the dragon's stomach, little details like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean the exit sign is just kind of, and the Super Nintendo game, by the way, every level would have an exit sign in the sky.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so we go to the road. We basically directs him to the rotunda, and then you basically hook a turn. You hit the phone. Of course, he doesn't get that far because he looks up, and we see this exquisitely painted.
And again, I mean, come on, tell me this isn't like where you board your trackless ride vehicles.
God, I love it. So basically, folks,
Right,
you have this basically this beautiful, like the rotunda is like this like round, like the dome-like part of the library. If you look up, it's almost like a sky, almost like it's like the Sistine Chapel kind of effect. You look up, there's this painted thing that has like all the sections on it. Basically, exactly from our poster here, even he's standing right under the rotunda, where you have this great compass which directs you all over the library. And you go, which that's the thing I really like about it. By the way, I love that you have like the actual like compass on the floor.
Yeah.
And so the kids don't get lost. And you look up and you see these paintings that basically foreshadow everything the kid's going to go through in the movie, which is really, really neat. And of course, the best part of it is the painting of the Pagemaster looks exactly like Christopher Lloyd, but as a wizard.
You're a wizard, Christopher.
So that brings us to we have this just like the fact the kid slips, and we have the Wizard of Oz kind of coma dream kind of coming into effect here, where the paint starts to drip, and this is always like that. Oh, that was the thing that like jazzed me out of my mind as a kid. Like, oh god, it's just kind of dripping down, then it comes to life, and it doesn't even have to look real because again, it's otherworldly, ethereal kind of like, oh god, it's terrifying and fake at the same time, and it's supposed to be.
Right.
It's all the rules of reality are going out the window, and just the paint floods, and it's that early kind of abyss looking. That's like the Abyss meets Bob Ross. It's the pink.
That's exactly
this is Bob Ross's nightmare come to life. Like the paint is coming out of the piece and chasing him down, and we foreshadow the dragon like coming in the form of paint, and just like it's swells him up. And how did you react when you were a kid when we go from live action to animation? Were you disappointed at all at first?
I mean, honestly, that was kind of a selling point for me from the trailers, so I was like expecting it and jazzed for it. One thing that I really appreciate, and I do really like the logic of at first Richard he says I'm a cartoon, and I love the correction, and I appreciate it even more as an adult. No, you're an illustration.
God, that's great. I love
that. So can we talk about how the Pagemaster is basically just Yensid?
Yeah, well, yes, that's the thing. So he's basically Christopher Lloyd crossed with Yensid, and the best part about his look, I don't know, I have to assume you've noticed this. I love that everything about his design makes him look like a book.
Oh yeah, totally.
Here's the thing I never caught. I never caught that basically if you, let's say hypothetically, you took a step back while you're watching the movie somehow. You took a step back. And he's basically a book turned from the sides, like the pages are the inside of the robe. You have like some red that's like the inside of the binding, and the blue is basically he looks like a book turned on its side.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of his hair and the beard and the staff, they're turned pages.
Yeah, it's great.
It's awesome. Anyway, so the Pagemaster lays it out. You go, you go basically you make your way towards the exit.
Mm-hmm.
Very straightforward. Again, the plot is very straightforward 3-act quest. Like head to the straight line, head to the exit. You go through the 3 genres.
The only thing that's not straightforward is like the world building of like how and why is everything like it is, and like you said, that just kind of gets chalked up to like ethereal weirdness.
Yeah, and again, it's head trauma.
Right. All right, so what do you think of the introduction of the first 2 books? In the I like how we're still in the actual physical library when we meet adventure and fantasy. Don't you like that choice? I think that's a good choice.
It is, and it's a great build-up too. Just the fact that they are, we see like you can open the books and something comes to life out of that. It's kind of foreshadowing kind of the event, like the stuff from the adventure part of the movie. Like in the fact that he's motivated by kind of out of fear and survival, out of like the 20,000 League Squid and the Hounds of the Baskerville.
I do like using the 20,000 League Squid as a means to get Richard to climb the ladder.
Yeah.
Let's talk about let's break down the voice acting. I mean, first of all, Patrick Stewart, man, this has got to be. You want to talk about one of Christopher Lloyd's most underrated performances. This has got to be the most underrated Patrick Stewart performance.
Yeah, this is his first voice gig, by the way.
Yeah, and I really think he freaking sells it, man. I mean, he sounds nothing like he usually sounds.
Yeah, it's not like going into like a Make It So #1. It's not
right.
that,
Yeah, it's so different from his usual Picard shtick.
And he's having a good time doing this too. So, but yeah, here's what I like. The books have kind of there's actually a logic in the movie I never caught before until this rewatch. That it's been years since I watched this, by the way.
Same. I was probably honestly, I was probably single digits the last time I watched this movie, which is crazy to think about.
Anyway, so I love that fantasy, her powers don't work because she was misshelved in the wrong section. So I like the logic there, and basically we kind of run towards horror to avoid the horror, because we're already kind of drifting towards the horror section, hence the Hound of the Baskervilles book. So again, like there's kind of like a thing it's built, it's moved, our story's being propelled.
I also like how Jacob Marley's grave is on the outskirts of horror.
Yep, for the Dickens.
That's a good touch.
Oh yeah. So again,
I like how Jacob Marley's grave has chains on it.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
really good. That's really cool. There's a lot of great. Also, if you ever look,
there's a lot of really cool Easter eggs in here.
If you freeze frame,
it's honestly kind of an Easter egg movie before Easter egg movies were a thing. Honestly.
Like that's the thing. If you freeze frame just the shelves alone, you'll see the shining and stuff. Like it's it's great. Anyway, so I love the whole golden ticket.
That was a fucking pop-up that came out of nowhere. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Damn internet. Anyways.
Anyway, I love the whole golden ticket idea of if you take us with you, we'll help you get out. Yeah. It's really funny.
What?
I forget which came out first, but there's it does take me, that plot point does take me back to there's this episode of Johnny Bravo. It's really funny. where basically Johnny Bravo is he's trying to impress a girl as he tends to do, and I think the girl is she's doing like a charity for kids, or she has a kid or something, and basically he goes like a Toys R Us to buy toys, and he ends up going on this adventure where basically the toys are guiding him, come to life, and they're guiding him through his way, so he promises to buy them if they help him out. So it's very much like they're along for the journey to get out of there. It's a whole thing. Anyway,
one of the bits of world building I've always found kind of confusing is how does it work in terms of like the three lead books like representing their entire genre, and yet we also have like all the other books within their respective genre? Like, is adventure like the mayor of the adventure section? Like, how does that work?
I would say
I'm probably
reprints.
thinking too much into it. I'm
You know,
probably thinking more about it
I'm
than the people who wrote this movie did.
you're Tiki one. You're right about that, but two, I'm gonna chalk it up to reprints.
Okay, there you go. There you
You know,
go.
different books have different editions. You know, maybe it's like they're like kind of a compendium, kind of like
Sure, I could see that.
squashed down.
Maybe like a best of sort of thing.
Yeah, there you go. They're a
Yeah,
best of. That's what I'm
there
saying.
we
They're
go.
like the sampling.
There we
They're
go.
the book on adventure, and the book on horror, and the book on fantasy.
All right, I can take that, I guess.
Okay, anyway, so again, I do love that our three act structures. Basically, we kind of have a genre per act. You and I are always huge advocates of a nice, simple three act structure. And what better for a three act structure than a book?
Mm, indeed.
All right, so let's see. So horror. So again, here's something we really got to highlight. No one's ever going to talk about this. So we should. Frank Welker voices
Yeah,
horror, and this is again for all intents and purposes. Again, we know it didn't do gangbusters, but at least for the time, we had kind of a feature film, and we had a voice actor in kind of like one of the three main roles.
yeah, it was nice. And I think Frank Welker does a hell of a job in this role. I think there are times where the character can be a little overbearing as far as like just being kind of like the cutesy sidekick, but he is also like very evidently the heart of the movie emotionally, and I think the movie does do a good job of setting that up. And as we're going to talk about with the ending is a great payoff for that.
You know what I'm gonna say? As much as we love Patrick Stewart and Whoopi Goldberg, you gotta admit though, it's like we had someone with like experience and caliber to
Yeah,
bring the heart of this film to the center there, where he's again he the reason he's the heart of the film is he parallels Richard Tyler, with the fear and the reluctancy, and I love his
I also
imperative.
love the logic of the reason he's so fearful is that horror books don't have happy endings.
It's a great idea. I love
That honestly might be the single best piece of world building in the whole movie.
I would like to think that was David Kirshner's idea. I'd like to think, being the horror aficionado that guy is, that he was maybe like, do a lot of horror stuff. It's never a happy ending. Maybe I could
Mhm.
work with that. But it's a great. It's such an endearing quality. Plus, making him very Hunchback-esque helps too.
Sure.
Anyway, so first trial. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Also, we should probably just go over fantasy too while we're at it.
Oh yes, you're right. So yes, Whoopi Goldberg playing fantasy.
And what I like about fantasy is I do like that they kind of go out of their way to kind of make her, feisty and outspoken and not really the stereotypical kind of like Disney princess mold. And I do think that Whoopi Goldberg, especially at the time, is a really good fit for something like that. And I think she really does kind of. I think all three voice actors really bounce off of each other very well. They fit their roles to a T. I like how unconventional the voice actors all are for their respective roles. Like with Patrick Stewart, like we said, it's like you don't usually cast a Patrick Stewart for a pirate. This is really the only time in his career that he's played something like this, but he has so much fun with it. And Whoopi Goldberg, I think I saw in that documentary, the casting director pretty much went out of their way where they didn't want some like European kind of British fairy princess. They wanted someone with a feist, with an energy, with kind of like a modern edginess to her. And I think Whoopi Goldberg really fits that role.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I make a really cheesy joke. I mean, voice of God.
Right.
Of all the people we could have cast, we picked the voice of Muppet God, aka this she's actually the Bible technically. Anyway, no dumb jokes, but still, Whoopi Goldberg, so
Although I could do without the Little Mermaid underwear line.
I know, right? That's in there. The only you know why that joke's in there.
Probably just as a Disney jab, I imagine.
Well, kind of, but I mean, more reference. We had Little Mermaid animators working on the movie.
I mean, sure, yeah.
Anyway,
right.
So, we have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, voiced by the wonderful. And this is also his first voice gig, Leonard Nimoy.
I think Leonard Nimoy just adds such an air of gravitas to Dr. Jekyll. I mean, I don't know. I just think the brief screen time he gets is just, it's very ominous. It's very atmospheric. I will say, Dragon, you might disagree with me here. The design of Mr. Hyde in particular might be my least favorite thing in the movie.
It's less about
he's too ape-like. I don't like it. It just kind of it's just not very aesthetically pleasing to me.
you know it's weird. I swear to you, as a kid, I had that thought. You know, with the Mr. Hyde thing, it's like, why is he? He doesn't really look like the guy. He just looks really.
He's literally just turns into a monkey man, not Monkey Man, but a monkey.
Oh no. No, the Monkey Man looks like Gene Wilder.
Yes. Oh God, Dragon.
Sounds like Andy Dick. Looks like
No. Hold on. Live action Hey Arnold. You know who they would cast as Monkey Man.
Jeremy Allen White.
Of course. Oh my God. Oh, dude. Just fucking no. Just give me a Monkey Man movie. Just give me a Monkey Man movie with Jeremy Allen White. Just please.
It just screams, Monkey Man. Where's my highlighter, Monkey Man?
Oh, dude.
Anyway, I'll make you some monkey bread. Anyway, where was here's what's great though. The transformation though. Anyway, a slice of the transformation.
The whole transformation, yeah. I just think the reveals kind of.
I don't disagree with you because
Mr. Hyde.
That's the other thing too, where admittedly, and I swear to you, I had this too when I was a kid, where to some degree, I didn't really understand it fully, but like what was off about it. But we have the transformation, but we peek at the transformation. Where okay, we have the scary thing. What's Mr. Hyde gonna do to him if he catches him? And we don't really have a sense of that. And it's really just like we're running around the haunted house and looking for a way out. You know, where that's the thing. Like the dangers seem to be.
Horror is definitely the least fleshed out of the three locations. Like, it's cool. Like, I think Nimoy adds like a really good kind of like air of clout to the whole section. But I think just as far as the plot points and even the aesthetics, I think it's probably the weakest.
Sure. Let's see. But again, just with the atmosphere, the lighting, and everything. Again, we're hitting our beats, but we're not. We kind of hit this thing where it's like development and pacing seems to be the kryptonite of the film. In that the film is really short, which I can appreciate. But by that same token,
literally 65 minutes if you cut out the credits.
That's the thing. So I respect the runtime, but with that, there is a drawback, and the drawback is we can only develop. Essentially we have four characters, and we can only develop them so much with 65 minutes. Especially when we have to set up and then do our ending with that. So it's more like definitely a firm 60 minutes, if not less. You know.
Sure.
So I'm just saying that's a tall order, even if you have. I think so. Ultimately, with that, it's like, for example, okay, we transition to adventure at sea, and of course, Patrick Stewart is pirate. Very fun. We have like the whole Moby Dick thing.
How do you feel about the Moby Dick thing? Because honestly, I'm a little bit mixed on it, but I think it more works than doesn't. And one of the reasons I think it works is I kind of view it as almost like a transition from horror to adventure.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's what I wanted to talk about too. With our 3 acts, I love how we blend the genres and we transition the genres. And basically what we're saying about it is that these genres do have...
Like Gulliver's Travels going from adventure to fantasy.
Exactly. So I love the connecting... our transitions are really solid and really natural. Where it feels like going from... Again, we're showing like these genres can become friends and they can bond because they have similarities and differences. And the viewer being the Richard Tyler character can take away from these and just kind of like learn something from them and kind of like he can get into them.
Sure.
If I made any sense with that point, but essentially,
for sure.
But I do love that though, and that so you're right. So Moby Dick is very much that's the scary kind of adventure book, and of course Ahab being
maybe the movie goes a little too hard into the dramatic horror department. I remember this part of the movie in particularly being pretty scary to me when I was a kid. And honestly, more scary than anything in the actual horror section.
That's the thing with we here's the thing: we have the style, but again, kind of our substance in the pacing department. Because think about this, D. We have this really great visual with like, Ahab. He turns really dark with the lighting. We
That
inverse things
that
like
red
black,
lighting, man, it's pretty iconic.
like the dark shadows and the red lighting, and then we have
Uh-huh.
like the blood red sea with Moby Dick, coming out of the water with the white whale, kind of coming out there. That's great. And we also have like a great joke in there too, where it says like, "Oh, he's crazy, he's mad, he's my kind of guy." Like
Right,
that's
right.
great. But here's the thing: we we peak with the whale yet again. We're okay. So after that, our pacing drawback is after Ahab, we separate our characters, but again, we don't really know. We treat this like we've lost these characters. It's like, oh no, I'm really heartbroken that we have lost horror and fantasy, but we didn't really know them that much. We didn't really know them that well. We didn't
Yeah,
bond with them
no, and
yet.
honestly, like it gets like, and the movie pulls this a couple times in the adventure section where then we get horror going off on his own and getting into trouble.
Yep.
That's honestly one of the things that stuck out to me even as a kid in this section. Is just like, man, we sure are losing and finding each other a lot.
That's the kryptonite of the film to me.
Yeah.
Thinking when I look back on it, that's the pacing kind of was a help, but it was also a major hindrance to the film.
That being said, I do think that we get a nice little like 5 minute speed run of the Jim Hawkins Long John Silver dynamic.
I agree, but here's the thing. So okay, two parts here. One with adventure.
Uh-huh.
Even working with the lack of like time to bond as we have, I really like what we can infer with adventure and through the performance that adventure looked for him and he's really sad about it, and we kind of put him alone with the kid and they're kind of bonding there, and there's a lot of respect that kind of develops between them. So adventure is like you feel a connection kind of forming there, even if there's not really a lot to found like a connection on.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
So the Treasure Island segment, I love Jim Cummings as John Silver. I love it.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I feel like Long John Silver is just like a role that Jim Cummings was just born to play, right?
As a kid, one of my big nostalgic buttons with this film was Long John Silver having the Jim Hawkins tip of the hat with Richard
Mhm.
Tyler. I love that so
I mean,
much.
I think it's perfect. I honestly think like, like because we're obviously very high on stuff like Muppet Treasure Island, and of course even more so stuff like Treasure Planet.
Yep.
And we love the Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver dynamic. And I genuinely think that this movie does pull off. Obviously you're not going to have the same level of feels as you're going to have for Treasure Planet when those two, go their separate ways, in the big finale of that movie. But I still think there's a little bit of a bond that forms between these two that
I know, right? That's the hat trick. Okay, here's the hat
Yeah.
trick. Again, you think it feels like we spend too much, like we have a weird distribution of screen time with the treasure island stuff, where it feels like it's kind of, even though it's 5 minutes, it still feels like a little too much, only because we have to work in the whole like, and then the friends were gone, then they're found, they were on the island the whole time and all that.
Right.
That kind of hurts it. But by the same token, Cummings' performance so epitomizes
He
the
sells it.
heart
He
and the
fucking
core
sells
of
it,
that story. He gave you the magic trick of, you feel like you've read through Treasure Island. You got a
Totally.
satisfying
I
adaptation.
honestly feel like that is like probably the number one moment where Ted Turner's like vision and goal for this movie from an edutainment perspective really works.
Yeah, I want them to feel like they read a book on fast forward. All right, so we have our temporary low of lows. We've lost the library card again. Very like blinking you miss it low of lows, but we've lost the library card.
Would
And
you say losing the wand is maybe a better low of lows?
no, remember they lose the wand just in the middle of an action sequence.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't. The wand doesn't even factor in anything. If she loses the wand, she's fine.
Right. Okay.
And then the wand set dressing, my friend. It completes the
No, but
ensemble.
you're right. The library card gets lost and found very, very quickly.
It's more important than the Little Mermaid underwear, I'll tell you that much.
All right, fair.
Anyway, so I gotta tell you, man, I love the beat of after Richard Tyler kind of stood up to, he basically had his Treasure Island moment. He kind of robbed adventure of his whole purpose of being, and in this moment, Adventurer's pride is hurt. His pride is hurt, and he takes it out on Har. And I love how that moment plays where you feel really bad for Har, but you understand where Adventure was coming from. He's just frustrated that
this movie's so fucking stupid, but somehow you're right. It does end up like pulling some genuine emotions out of the very, very one-dimensional characters.
I'm kind of having this in a moment, Tiki, but it really feels like all the great parts of this movie are performance-driven. That's really where it comes down to. The performances are saving.
No, I think you're right. I really, truly think that the performances, the voice acting, and the human performances just really do save it. I think Macaulay is probably the weak link as far as the performances go, but he's doing his best. He's doing his 90s thing. So it's whatever.
Yep. Anyway, so let's see. So your heart goes out to poor Har, and then we buy it back with Adventure saving Har from Gulliver's Travels.
Which, by the way, Dragon, Gulliver's Travels, when I was a kid, this was on my childhood nope list. Like, I hated little people. Like not just little, like the Munchkins and Wizard of Oz were fine. I hated the idea of like ant people, essentially.
What about the borrowers? Were you terrified of the borrowers?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Did you ever see the movie?
I think I saw Indian in the Cupboard, and I was terrified of that.
Yeah, one of these days you gotta watch the borrowers, man.
I've seen Secret World of Arietti. I'm good.
I know, but the other one has John Goodman and Hugh Laurie in it, though. Anyway, okay, go on. Sorry.
But seriously, it was kind of like one of my things. Like, just the idea of being like overpowered by a bunch of miniature people was just existentially terrifying to me, Dragon. So it's kind of funny to see just how quickly the scene kind of comes and goes in the context of the actual movie. Because when I was a kid, this scene would genuinely be like a leave and go in the other room until it's over moment for me when I was watching it on VHS.
I did not know you were that afraid of little people.
I know it's never really come up, and also with little people again, it's less like it wasn't like I was going like, oh my god, Vern Troyer.
He doesn't. Tiki doesn't fear and hate the height challenge, folks. I'm going to say that.
Yes, I want to clarify that.
He's terrified of actual Ant-Man sized people.
Yes, actual Ant-Man sized people. Exactly.
Wait, so were you white knuckling through Ant-Man?
No.
Good. Just making sure.
There'd have to be a lot of Ant-Men, Dragon. Maybe the
well, basically,
Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania maybe got me.
The whole storm, the probability storm. That's the one that's like, oh, is it over?
Like swarms of anything will get me a little jittery, and I think we've gone over this before. Just the idea of like something that's smaller than you, but a lot of something that's smaller than you overtaking you, that scares me.
Yep.
Anyways.
This is the climax of Toy Story. Okay.
I mean, yeah. It's so many yes.
Anyway. So, but yeah, so we have also, you know what, every time I think of Gulliver's Travels, I keep thinking of this dumb joke. I keep thinking it's when our pal Jay Gulliver goes on vacation.
I mean, truly, our pal should start a travel vlog and just call it Gulliver's Travels.
There you go.
It writes itself, Jacob. You can have that idea for free.
All right, we have this really cute apology moment too, where he thinks Har's like kind of has expired, and he's like he's saying something nice to him. And he's like, oh, it's just like I like you too. And he's alive and everything, and then fantasy like, oh, isn't that cute? Adorable. Okay, so we have the fourth song, which our commenters seem to really like, but it's okay. I like I respect what it's going for, but it just feels super mandated to me.
You know what's funny is that some of the levels in the video game that we kind of yada through, like there's a whole level on Humpty Dumpty's wall, Dragon.
Really?
Yes. There's a whole level on the Yellow Brick Road. There's a whole level just involving the Three Little Pigs. So, like, that's kind of my gripe with the song, is the fact that the song yada yadas through some potentially really cool world building. And honestly, one of my big gripes with the song is that visually, we're not really doing that much.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. We're basically just sort of doing like a quick little drive-by of like, there's the fairies, there's
Yeah.
Mother Goose, and there's Humpty Dumpty, who we kind of casually murder.
Yeah. I feel like in order to have the song actually make a lot of impact, you would need to have it be visually just more interesting. Almost have it kind of take on like a Yellow Submarine sort of vibe, where it's just like visually captivating. I don't know. Okay. Anyways.
All right, let's see. Okay, so basically we transition into fantasy. It's basically our third act. Kind of be in the last trial here. We have the dragon's cave. This was a nice touch. How the sword in the dragon's heart basically is what kept it in the dormant, cave-like state. Like that's kind of interesting because removing the the thing that killed it brings it back to life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like how we built up the dragon. The very top of the movie, we had like the animated cloud sequence, which had a dragon and a knight fighting each other, and then we have like the like the paint.
And the dragon was a big part of the marketing too. And I want to point out, like, a big part of the marketing in general was Richard Tyler, like live action Richard Tyler with the sword and the shield.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to point out, I do think in the movie it is a very cool cathartic moment when he does take the sword and the shield and the helmet. But I think it's really funny for as much as the marketing played it up. He's maybe in that getup for less than a minute of screen time.
Yeah.
It's a cool look, though. And I can see why the marketing would hype up that look.
Yep. Just do it at the very end of the movie.
Right. I mean, what they basically did is they pulled the same shit that the Super Mario Brothers movie pulled. It honestly kind of reminded me of that.
Let's see. So again, here's the thing. I like tension wise is basically it's a race to the exit. Like we have the exit we've been going through this whole movie. It's right there. It's got to go up.
And I think some of the best world building is that temple of book staircases that you mentioned. I love the visual of that.
It's great.
And also the fantasy sequence in general, I want to point out, has a very Ivan Earl design to it in the backgrounds. The backgrounds are very like Ivan Earl kind of like expressionist line work, which I just noticed in its most recent viewing. I mean, I never would have picked up on that as a kid anyways, but I think that's a cool detail.
Here's kind of a missed opportunity. I think, we had the moment where we tear a page from fantasy. We tear a page from fantasy's binding.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically summon like something to help Richard Dawes. He's like plummeting to his demise. We have like the the Arabian Nights. We have the magic carpet, which was definitely on people's minds by the time the film was
released. Right.
But that was a really good idea. It feels like we could have done that a lot more during this climax with fantasy.
Sure.
Man, it would have been like tearing like pieces of.
I mean, honestly, the whole movie she could have been doing that. Yeah.
Well, no, that's the thing, Tiki. I like the logic. She couldn't do that the whole movie because.
Oh no, you're right. But yeah, throughout the whole climax, it would have been cool if maybe they would have taken on like more of an Emperor's New Groove kind of direction, where it's like just a ton of shit just happening at the same time.
Yeah, because now she has magic. That would be that's your big moment. There's your Scholastic Endgame fair there. She's the Scarlet Witch in this fight.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Anyway, so the impressive animation on the dragon.
The dragon has always been like a really, really big standout thing to me. As I mentioned in the Super Nintendo game, you get like at least 2 or 3 levels just in the dragon's stomach, which I think is really awesome. I love the idea of Richard Tyler literally going into the belly of the beast, like the symbolism of that. And I honestly think that him defeating the dragon using the Jack and the Beanstalk is genius. And I honestly think it's one of the most memorable visuals of the movie is just like the big beanstalk just bursting out of the dragon's mouth.
God, I love that. And I love that it's because the dragon swallowed the books and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a weird comparison for you, okay?
Okay.
So, I was watching this movie, I was thinking about something, because just the climax of the dragon and everything is kind of where we are now versus where we were then watching this movie way back, because now we have like a really great point of reference. A part of me feels like we should have trimmed the climax slightly in places, not losing any of the great dragon stuff, or losing any like crux of it. But I'm saying, for example, stuff like adventure and fantasy having a little romance gag. It's like, it's
that was unneeded. I'll give you that.
Look, it's kind of clever, the fact that there's something in relation to adventure and fantasy. Hence, like the fact is, again, with the whole like bonds between the books and everything. I kind of get it, but it's very ill-timed. We don't need this during the climax of all times. Okay, we don't need it now.
Sure.
That said, if we trim stuff like that, or maybe it's tightened, like, because again, we keep reaching the X and we kind of pull back. Well, if we kind of trimmed it out to the bare essentials, it feels like if we kind of made it like if we took the pacing of the movie onward, where we had like the big climax with like the dragon that was made from the pieces of the school, like something along those lines, where it's like we're in an intense battle with the dragon while we're trying to like reach a specific goal. In this case, it's the X. In that case, it's like we gotta cast the spell while we're battling this dragon. You know what I mean? Am I making like any coherent point?
I hear you.
Anyway, so so we have a really great escape with the beanstalk. By the way, I love the gag too of like, I'm not scared of you, but kid, it's a dragon. The dragon eats him. It's like, well, yeah, what did you think was gonna happen?
Right.
You're a kid that weighs like $150 soaking wet. you're not gonna stop that thing. Anyway, so end of the film. Okay, here's where we gush. End of the film, utterly beautiful. So James Horner's score comes back. We're in kind of the domicile of the Pagemaster. We've reached the exit. The boy calls out the Pagemaster, and we have this great Christopher Lloyd line. Think, boy, what kind of adventure would it be if I just brought you back here with the turn of a page?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just kind of a great kind of like, what is the point of an adventure? It's basically a call out of like the Wizard of Oz, clicking your heels kind of a thing of like, no, that's why Glinda didn't do it, because where's the fun in that? Where's the lesson in that?
Sure.
Then he's now this is the beat earlier on. I wonder if you had as much nostalgic attachment as I did. The praise by the obstacles that they encounter, like little last kind of tip of the hat, like kind of recap of all.
No, I really like that. Yeah.
Like Long John Silver, like saying you got pirate blood in you. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Oh God, no, that gives me chills.
Right?
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm saying like that to the end of the movie is like chill central there, because we have that. That's great. And then here's where I'm broken. Here's where I'm broken all the one. I'm Kinsuki in all the right ways, my friend.
Oh.
Okay, we go to the rotunda. We have this great visual thing. We see the painting of the Pagemaster made to look like Christopher Lloyd to Mr. Dewey showing up in the shot, really well directed. And then here's where the inside out tissues come out for me, okay? Christopher Lloyd's performance in this scene, where basically, Rich Towers, he's made it to the end. He's got the books. I love how the live action books resemble the animated counterparts in terms of like the thickness and like the binding of the books and everything, which already is kind of cool. It's impractical, but it's cool. And he's about to check out, and he has like the library card and everything. He says like you can only the rule is you can only check out 2 books at a time. And this always got me as a kid, still gets me now.
It got me as a kid too. I'm not gonna lie. I'm with you.
Just he's gone on this journey, especially with horror, and he's like taking the horror book from it. He says, "But no horror." And this is Macaulay Culkin's best performance in the whole movie too, by the way. At least his best attempt at the performance. Christopher Lloyd completely smokes the kid here, but still, just him saying, "But horror, I promised him." And this is horror. He's basically kind of questioning him there. He's like, "Please, I'm begging you. Can you just?" And he stops. And this is where Christopher Lloyd has basically, it's like the moment with Gene Wilder at the end of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. When what he says. What happened to the man who suddenly got everything he ever wanted? He lived happily ever after. It's basically that's what this moment is. This is the equivalent to this is Christopher Lloyd's equivalent to that moment here, where he just says, "Shh." The ultimate thing every librarian is trained to say. Shh.
Oh my God! Yes.
Just this once. And again, it's because it's a callback to the line at the beginning where I have a knack for knowing what people need. And it's just such a moving moment to me, where it's such a simple line, just like, shh, I wrote a fan letter and hand delivered it to the man myself like a year or 2 back, to Christopher Lloyd, telling him how much I love this character in this moment. This is a moving moment. It's just Joe Johnson's like directing the heck out of this movie when he can.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the victory with the bike, which, shield or no shield. It's like, yeah, it's all right.
I think it's a cool moment. I'm not going to lie.
It's okay. It's nice. It's earned at the end of the movie. It's earned before. It's like, okay, we have to really sell this kid's, he's not popular with his friends.
I do think it's ridiculous that all the school kids, treat him like shit just because he doesn't want to go over that very obviously hazardous-looking jump.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally made out of makeshift construction equipment.
Honestly, in today's day and age, I think Richard Tyler would probably be the popular one because people will be like, no, let's listen to Richard. This is sketch, man. This is sketch. Let's not do this.
By the way, there's a little Easter egg I wanted to mention. It was always really great with the we way past it, but real quick because it kind of relates to the whole we never got the nails from the hardware store.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I love that. When the pirates are basically they're turning him and Adventure upside down, shaking all the pocket contents out, you'll notice he has his live action props on because he's got the library card, he's got the $5 that his father gave him, he's got the nail that Long John Silver's using to pick stuff out of his teeth with. It's a little thing. Anyway, so the parents again, we showed the parents were actively looking for him and worried, and they see to their shock the kids in the treehouse. Again, they're not questioning the lack of nails because that would just put a damper on our nice ending here. Richard, I told you to do one thing, just one thing, and I would have been proud of you.
You just get straight up verbally abusive with him. God damn it, Richard! You're a disappointment.
See, we were in this whole music, this whole proud of our boy moment, and you just, no thumbs up, Richard, no thumbs up. The critics, they're going to give this movie a thumbs down because you didn't get the nails, darn you.
And it just becomes a very depressing ending. Richard Tyler realizes that the books aren't alive, that he's been delusional the whole time.
There's this thing where says, we'll yell at him in the morning.
Oh my God.
It's...
Oh, man.
Literature's my escape now. Kids, that's the moral. Literature is the escape to an unhappy home life. Educate yourselves and write your own books. Anyway. But no, in all seriousness, we do have this nice kind of ending here where the kids, he's conquered his fear, he's climbing the treehouse, he's asleep there, and you have we blend the live action animation with the shadows on the wall. Very old school Disney, by the way.
I think it looks really cool still.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just the shadows, and again, the fact that horror got his happy ending, man, that's what's beautiful. It's all together.
Let's talk about that final line from.
Okay, yes, the final.
Let's talk about it because it is fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I thought you mean the actual last line, don't you?
Not the whole kissing gag.
That's what I was thinking. You mean the whole "it's good to have friends" thing?
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's thing. I love saying I love the end of this movie. Then we have that one joke, but aside from that one joke, everything to the end is great. But just this moment of oh, what's wrong, handsome? This is so nice to have friends.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean I don't know. There's something about that, man, that just really speaks to me. I think the specific line is I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I have friends.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's the line. That's great.
It's just fucking beautiful. It's genuinely a fucking beautiful sentiment, and I will not hear any slander otherwise.
No. There's no. I thought you were talking about the end one, but yeah, that's the thing. That
line, I can slander the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's unnecessary. Yeah,
it just feels come on. It's literally the most
end out on that's where they choose to end out.
It's
on.
We reference the dumb, the most pointless part of the movie, where it's kind of reference that at the very end of all the great gold that we have here. That's the one.
Right.
We have romance novel, and that's the gag you're gonna. Anyway, regardless, though, you're absolutely right.
I feel like we can kind of draw a parallel line between the really sudden relationship between adventure and fantasy, and then freaking what's his name, Louis and Lisa Simpson.
There you go. Yeah.
I refuse to call her anything but Lisa Simpson.
Okay, we get it. So, but no, I agree though. But seriously, it is a really great, beautiful arc on horror, and that he got the happy.
Horror has the actual arc, and then adventure and fantasy are just kind of Well, we're the 90s. There has to be romance in this somewhere, and that Richard Tyler isn't getting any, so...
Oh, come on. I wouldn't put it like that.
No,
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry.
God, that's... Any romance he finds ends in horrific bee death.
Oh, God. Oh, man. He is probably the closest Macaulay Culkin character to that kid.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. Anyway,
Where his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
Yeah, well, that's all she wrote. That's the end of the book, my friend.
All right, so final thoughts.
Final thoughts again, man. Just talking through it again. It just feels like the performances and the direction that we get in this film really saves it. Really kind of like still that part of it still holds up, man. Again, I will sing the praises of that just this once moment with Christopher Lloyd all the live long day, but also just again. It's all the little warm and fuzzy moments that comprise that make the binding of this wonderful story that we have here. Is it the most well told story? No. Is it a first draft? Most likely. But again, did the people
is it essentially corporate propaganda? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Turner's reading material. But that said, do the performances in the audiobook make you cry? Absolutely. Is Frank Welker, the Turner performance we all knew he could given a feature opportunity? Absolutely. It's Patrick Stewart showing like he's more than a space captain. Totally. Just it's an absolutely, I still look back on this movie very fondly. Just maybe it's even at like an hour, like a hair over an hour. You might be skipping around to the good parts, but still, the good parts are great parts.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is for a certain group of, like, I understand that if you didn't directly grow up with this, or if it wasn't part of your childhood rotation, it's a little more on the obscure side. And I understand if it's not your thing, but I think for that certain subsect of 90s kids that did grow up with this thing, I mean, it's one of the classics, man. I mean, especially as far as like non-Disney, non-Pixar, like it's up there, as we already kind of established. It's not as good as most of the Disney Renaissance stuff, although definitely better than something like Pocahontas. But it's better than pretty much all of the Don Bluth stuff in the 90s, except maybe Anastasia, So I think it's right up there. I think it's got its place in this sort of very iconic era for animation. And like I said, Dragon, check out that Super Nintendo game, because seriously, one of the best adaptations of, I'm not kidding you, it's up there. All right, folks. So, big thanks to Little Blue, Slasher Fred, and Kogias in the comments. I think that's everyone. Also, Jacob at the start. All right. You guys all are awesome. See y'all later. Have a good night, everyone.
Just this once.
Maybe just this once.